So hi everybody, welcome to this webinar. I'm so excited that you're here. And first of all, I want to really thank Pamela Kullman for approving this webinar for the group. And I really appreciate her encouragement and support. Because what happened was I posted something a while ago about the relationship between stress and histamines. And there were so many responses, something like 172 people commented. So I thought there's probably a need for some more understanding of the relationship between stress and histamine intolerance. So you guys don't know me. My name is Hannah Studley. I'm a MindBody coach. I'm an author. I've written 2 books, another 2 or 3 on the way. And I speak at conferences and share these ideas with a lot of different people, including doctors and other medical professionals. But I myself am not a doctor. I am not medically trained, so I'm just going to put that out there. This is all coming from my own experience and from the research I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years into the mind-body connection. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I grew up in England, as you may be able to tell from my accent, and I started out with chronic allergies and interstitial cystitis. I can never say that word. At the age of 4 or 5 years old, I was highly allergic to pollen. I was, the streaming eyes, the sinus infections, the itchy skin. It was, going through school was a nightmare. In fact, I was thinking the other day, I never got a day off for a cold or a flu like other kids did, because I was always sneezing and I always felt sick. And my mother would say, just go to school, it's just allergies. And so by the time I got to high school, my high school bag was like a pharmacy. I had the Piriton and the prednisone and the inhalers. And every winter I had to have injections in my arms. It was the 70s. And I guess that was what the latest idea was for chronic rhinitis and hay fever allergies at the time. The cystitis, they could never find a reason for it. I'd had lots of horrible tests and, being examined by men with cold hands. It was the 60s. Nobody was really into taking care of patients so much then in terms of privacy. And it was just the way it was. By the time I got to college, I developed asthma. I had some really frightening times in college when I felt like I couldn't breathe. In high school, I had psoriasis. I actually missed all my exams when I was 16. I had to take them in the headmaster's office later because my skin erupted in this horrible rashes. It was so bad they banned me from school. They said they didn't want me there because it looked contagious, even though it wasn't. So on and on, all these, what I now see as stress-related illnesses kept coming up, although I never saw myself as sick. In my late 20s, I started developing IBS. Had some terrible experiences with that. The cystitis came back for a while when I was an adult. I then had cystic acne, those really horrible red lumps that come up under the skin that are so painful. I had candida. I was actually, I experienced a lot of violence in my early 20s. I had a lot of trauma. So I had PTSD, and during that time, my period stopped for a whole year. So it was on and on. These things just kept happening to me. As a result of the violence I experienced, I was actually mugged 3 times, which is bad enough when you're mugged 1 time, but yes, 3 times. The first time my skull was fractured. The second time I had 3 herniated discs. And the third time my neck was broken. C2 and C3 were cracked through. So I was diagnosed with PTSD. It was the early 1980s, so there wasn't really much treatment around at the time. And so consequently, I just got more and more sick and more withdrawn, agoraphobic. I couldn't go out. I think that's when my period stopped. I was just really, really terrified of life, really, of leaving the house. And then that's when the back pain started. I had chronic lower back pain for 25 years. I had an appointment with a chiropractor for 25 years every month. And it would get so bad at times. I was paralyzed several times from the chest down. I had sciatica pain that would shoot down my legs. I was constantly, seeing the chiropractor, osteopaths, homeopaths, you name it, I tried it, then so I've got the allergies, were really bad still. And so I'm doing the neti pot, I'm doing other, all kinds of treatments you can think of. And like I said, I never thought of myself as a sick person. These were just things I had to put up with. And then towards the end, I got something called iritis, which is when your eye swells up and it goes red and it feels like someone punched you in the eye. And I just thought these were things I'd have to deal with. The back pain, I thought that's just, it's just the way I am because of the injuries, and I'd have to live with it. The allergies, this is just the way my body is. I have to just deal with it as best I could. And then I'd been a trauma counselor for a good 20, 30 years because of what happened to me. That was the work that I was doing. I trained as a trauma counselor, and I really started to understand the stress response. And so for those of you, I'm sure, I know a lot of the people in the group have done a lot of research into all of this, but just to recap. So the stress response is an amazing system that we are all designed with. And it's designed to last for about 20 minutes. If you're in a situation like a car accident, the house is on fire, so God forbid, something like that, the stress response is put into action for about 20 minutes. And in those 20 minutes, our bodies are pumped full of cortisol and adrenaline, epinephrine, glucose, all those stress chemicals that are designed to give us energy to either run, like flight, or to fight. So all the major muscles in your arms and legs are pumped full of adrenaline and glucose, and cortisol makes that all metabolize really quickly. And this is an amazing system to help us survive. And then it takes about 72 hours until the body goes back to homeostasis, back to normal, and then we're ready to face another emergency. Now, when I was learning this, I was thinking, hold on, my clients aren't sitting in stress for 20 minutes. They're sitting in stress for 2 hours, 4 hours, 8, 16, 18 hours a day, sometimes day after day. I've explained this to some clients and they're like, yeah, I've been like that for decades. Now, I never thought of myself as a stressed person because I was the coach. I was the trauma counselor. I'd gotten over my PTSD. But looking back now, I can see that I had a lot of anxious thinking. I think what happened was the hypervigilance, which is very typical symptom of PTSD. As I started to do a lot of self-help work and a lot of training and working on myself, that hypervigilance kind of went inward. And I got very vigilant about my thinking. I was into things like the Course in Miracles and the Enneagram. I was writing gratitude lists. I was, doing lots of expressive writing, yoga, meditation. I was now living in California at this point because I also had a career in Hollywood. I did special effects on movies for many years as well. So as I'm working with clients in between the movies and I'm learning and I'm working on myself, I continued to have all these physical problems, and it never really made sense to me. Until about 7 years ago, I came across a new paradigm in psychology. It's called the 3 principles, and I'm happy to share more about that with you in a minute. But as I started to get excited about these new ideas, I started to notice that my symptoms were going away. My back pain from 25 years, all gone. I haven't had any pain in 6 or 7 years now. My allergies took a little bit longer to go away, but I'm actually allergic to olive trees, and I now live in Israel. I'm speaking to you from Jerusalem, and you can't go for more than 10 feet without bumping into an olive tree here. And I'm not sneezing. I have a little bit of congestion, but that's nothing compared to what I was like. The first couple of years I lived here, my eyes are streaming. I had sinus infections. It was like, my face was all swollen. I'd want to rip my face off and stick it in a bucket of cold water. It was so bad. And now, like last couple of years, nothing. My allergies have completely gone. I can walk out in the countryside. I can be anywhere, and I'm not reacting like I used to. So I started putting all these ideas together and connecting the relationship between the stressful thinking that I was having, the symptoms I was experiencing, and understanding the mind-body connection. So when we're in constant fight or flight, and our stress response is being activated. Like I said, it wasn't designed to last or to work that way. So when we're constantly in a kind of stress situation, that is going to put our bodies under immense pressure to do things it wasn't designed to do. And so for the last 6 or 7 years since my pain went away, I've been working with people with chronic physical issues, things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, allergies, IBS, and muscle and joint pain. And what I've noticed that they all pretty much have similar symptoms, things like insomnia, brain fog, intolerances to certain foods, intolerance to noises, So tinnitus is often an example, vertigo. Even if they come to me with, say, back pain, they probably also have a history of allergies and headaches, like terrible migraines, some people, and stomach problems like I had. These things they build up a picture of who we are suffering from feeling our thinking. That's how I see it now. Now, when I look back to when I was a small child and I had all these allergies and the cystitis, just really quickly, my family situation was in many ways idyllic. I grew up in the English countryside. My mother was home cooking home cooked food. We went on family holidays. We went to museums. From the outside, it looked perfect. But my parents weren't handling things very well in terms of, I have an older brother. He's about 7 or 8 years older than me, and he was having a very hard time. And so as they struggled to help him, I was the little girl. I was 4 or 5 years old, and I was just, go play somewhere else, go play in the other room, you're in the way. I grew up in a house of shouting and slamming doors and being told I was in the way. So as a little kid, and I didn't know what was going on because nobody was explaining it to me, I probably felt like I was in the way and I wasn't important. And so classic situation, I got my mother's attention when I was sick. She had to take me to the hospital for all those tests with the allergies and the cystitis. She had to keep taking me to the doctor for the injections for the allergies in the winter, giving me the medicine, taking care of me. That's how I got my mother's attention. And it's such a classic, psychology 101 thing. But I think what happened is because I somehow made an association with her attention and being sick, my immune system probably got dysregulated in that it got a lot of attention that it probably wasn't supposed to. For example, if you were to put 10 people in a field and say 7 of them are okay and 3 of them start sneezing, then it can't be the pollen that's bad, because otherwise everybody would be sneezing. Why was I sneezing? Why are you having certain allergic reactions, but other people can eat that food or hear those sounds or go to certain places or be around certain people and be okay? So there's something going on with our immune systems that are overreacting or hyperreacting. So when I started reading all this research and connecting this together, I noticed that in many of the areas that I've been working with, things like long COVID, for example, chronic pain and physical issues, and now histamine intolerance, I see that people who have these conditions, not everyone, but there's a great majority of people who have a history of trauma, of abuse, of some kind of prolonged stressful thinking, anxiety, mood disorders. And when we're in that state of stress for a long time, it's affecting our immune systems. And Deepak Chopra actually said once that the immune system is like a moving nervous system. And there's lots of research and science to back this up. And they say like our second brain is in our gut. If I am constantly in fight or flight, I'm going to see anything and everything as stressful. Even after I got over my PTSD and I was living a pretty cool life in Hollywood, doing movies and flying around the world, I now see that my thinking was pretty anxious. I had what you could call a perfectionist kind of personality. And I've learned that perfectionist doesn't necessarily mean like OCD kind of perfection, like you have to have everything lined up and everything the right way around. What I saw was my perfectionist thinking comes out in noticing when things are wrong. Like if you just parked your car the other way around, then it would be so much more efficient when you left in the morning. Why are you complaining you have no money? You go to Starbucks every day, right? I'm constantly monitoring, supervising you, our circumstances, myself, my behavior. Now, think about that. If I'm constantly seeing everything that's wrong, that's going to be sending danger messages to my brain. And when my brain thinks I'm in danger, it's going to activate fight or flight. Now, it might not be in a full panic situation, but I think what happened for me, it was a constant river of misery going through the back of my consciousness that was saying, it's not safe, be careful. Can you trust that person? That's wrong, that's wrong. In fact, I'll just give you an example. The other day I had a really good laugh at myself because I slipped back into this kind of thinking for a moment. I was walking through a parking lot, and you know how they often paint white lines on the tarmac to show you where to park your car. And you know how there's that guy who, or woman, who parks their car a little bit too close to the white line, so the next person can't quite get in, or if they can get in, they can't open their driver's side door, or maybe their doors is going to be scratched. I'm walking through this parking lot and I'm thinking, that is so inconsiderate. Why do people do that? Why can't they just take a couple of extra minutes just to park properly? Now, I don't have a car here. I live in the center of the city. There's nowhere to park. It's got nothing to do with me. Why am I spending the next 5 minutes thinking, like, judging that person for their parking? I don't know if you're like that. Some of you may be laughing. I can see people always kind of start grinning when I talk like this, because if you identify with that kind of thinking, just think what that message that is sending to your brain. You see, brains don't speak English. They're stuck in this box called the skull, and they only have our 5 senses to go on. What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we feel when we're touched or when we touch things. And if I'm getting a stress response from any of my 5 senses, that is going to dysregulate my immune system. It's going to dysregulate my nervous system. And that's why so many of us get into a real mess with our physiological issues. And then when we go to the doctor and we ask for tests, and the tests come back, negative, and the doctors are saying there's nothing wrong with you. I see so many posts in the group, like, such frustration when doctors say there's nothing wrong with you. It's the same with long COVID too, and often with other mind-body problems. Then we get even more frustrated because no one seems to understand. Can you see how that's also adding layers and layers of frustrated thinking? So let's talk for a moment. What is histamine? So forgive me, because I'm going to read this for a moment, because like I said, I'm not a doctor. Histamine is a neurotransmitter. It communicates important messages between your body to the brain. This allows white blood cells to quickly move through the bloodstream and find the potential threat or infection. This is an important component to a healthy immune system. So I got that from the wonderful information that Pamela puts up on the Histamine Intolerance group. And then here's another quote. Allergic rhinitis releases cytokines, a type of inflammatory protein. It's believed that this protein can have a negative effect on brain function, triggering sadness and depression. Can you see how that ties in with what I've been saying? Can you see the vicious cycle here? We are getting stressed about something. We might not even notice the stress, but it's some kind of niggly, anxious thinking. This puts us into a slight fight or flight response. And then we start having a histamine intolerance experience where we can't tolerate certain foods or certain sounds, certain clothes, maybe even on your skin. And then we get nervous and anxious about that. Then we start researching. I have plenty of clients who Google at 2 o'clock in the morning and scare themselves crazy. And then we start going to doctors who can't answer us. So we're getting more stressed, and then the symptoms come even more. And can you see the vicious cycle? So what I'm seeing is that just changing diet and doing journaling and meditation and all those wonderful things are kind of like putting a Band-Aid on it. Now, I'm not saying that the diet isn't useful, and writing and meditation aren't just wonderful things. They are. I think that getting in touch with your feelings, eating a healthy diet is excellent. But if you're using the diet as a Band-Aid, it's probably not surprising that other things are now going to become a problem. It's not surprising that if you're writing about issues and going to therapy and meditating on it as a Band-Aid, it's not surprising that then something else like tinnitus is now going to become a problem. And now we've got migraines. Now I have to do work on that. Can you see all this busy work is creating more stress? And that's what happened for me. I was a trauma coach. I was learning every new technique and method that came out. And I was teaching people how to have really good thought hygiene. And I was getting more and more physical symptoms because I innocently didn't understand. So this is another piece of research that I read. Mast cells. Since I've been looking into histamine intolerance, I'm learning about mast cells. It says mast cell issues are basically not autoimmune, but rather immune dysfunction, where the mast cells overreact to normal stimuli. This is from the PDF that's also posted in this group. Now, why would my immune system be dysfunctioning? Can you see the connection with stress here? It says the source of mast cell issues developing is usually due to hormonal milestones like puberty, childbirth, and menopause, a period of extreme stress, a virus like COVID or illness, a surgery, trauma, abuse, chemical or mold exposure, etc. Do you hear all these symptoms again? This basically sends our body into fight or flight, which keeps looping. That's the vicious cycle I've been talking about. Our mast cells still think we are in danger and keep sending its soldiers out to protect us. It's such a great way to say it. Our immune system is like, it's defending us. It's trying to do the right thing, but they become overreactive to normal stimuli, seeing everything as a threat. So see how we're seeing everything as a threat. It's an innocent misunderstanding. And that's where this new understanding in psychology comes in that I want to share with you. What I started to see was that I was an innocent victim of listening to my own thinking. If my head is going round and round with stressful thinking and I'm listening to it, that's going to keep activating all these allergic reactions and physical issues. As I started to understand that I didn't have to listen to my own thinking, just because I had a thought didn't mean I have to listen to it. Wow, that was freedom right there, right? So as I stopped listening to so much of my anxious thinking, my immune system and my nervous system got the message that I was safe. The safer I felt, the more it didn't have to overreact. And like I said, my pain has gone away, my IBS has corrected itself, my allergies are pretty much gone. Even like the acne, I was given a cream by a dermatologist to deal with the cystic acne. It's called Retin-A. I used it for 20, 30 years. And living here about, I don't know, 4 years ago, I went to fill the prescription and the pharmacist said, oh, they don't make that anymore. I'm like, what? What do you mean it's a medication? What do you mean they don't make it anymore? And it was true, they'd stopped making it. So I thought, this is going to be interesting. So I haven't used that cream in 2 years now, and my cystic acne never came back. It's incredible. As my thinking has slowed down, as my state of mind has gotten better and better, in a better state of consciousness, I don't feel in danger all the time. And even if I get some stinky thinking, I've learned to not be frightened of it. This is the biggest message. If you hear anything today, this is what I got from my teacher, Sydney Banks. He said, if only people could learn not to be afraid of their own experience, that would change the world. Well, it's changed my world. My inner world has got much more peaceful. My mind is a safe neighborhood to hang out in. And isn't that what we all want? We want to feel safe. We want to be able to eat our favorite foods, go to our favorite places, and do it without needing all those band-aids of medications and having to do meditation and mindfulness and writing. And can you see, even when I list it, you can feel the heaviness of it. So I know now when I'm getting into some stinking thinking, I can feel the heaviness of it. Sometimes it feels intense. You know, when you start worrying about what to eat, you can feel the urgency of trying to fix it and change it. I had an experience once with a client of mine. She was trying a new diet because of some physical issues. And she was already eating organic, which was great. But because she had kind of a bit of a perfectionist personality and put some anxiety on top of that because of the physical issue, she was now having to get everything organic. Even her spices had to be organic. And she started developing a rash on her skin because the stress of trying to get this diet right was actually making her more sick. Now, I'm not saying don't get a special diet. What I'm saying is her thinking about the diet was creating more illness. I don't eat processed food. I've cut out white sugar. I've cut out white flour. I eat pretty much just protein and vegetables most of the time, a little bit of bread on the weekend, but that's just a treat. Because I can treat myself sometimes because I'm not worried about it, right? So eat healthy, yes, but stressing about it, that's causing more problems with my immune system and my nervous system. The same is true of exercise. In the pain management world, there's a big debate on whether we should do it a physiotherapy and exercise for certain physical problems. For example, if you've been told that your shoulder pain is a mind-body connection, it's actually coming from a stress situation, to then go and work on that shoulder would be a contradiction, therefore stressful. Now, I exercise, I walk pretty much most days as much as I can, and I go and do water aerobics, but I'm not doing it to fix my body anymore. I'm doing it because it's good to exercise, like it's good to help, like it's good to eat healthy. By all means, take care of yourself. But when we're doing it in a low mood, when we're doing it out of stress and urgency, that's probably going to be counterproductive. And that's why people often have to jump from one diet to another program, to another guru, to another system of trying to control and manage the stress and trying to control and manage the physical symptoms. But when you're doing that from a better state of mind, from understanding, from a place of compassion for yourself, from compassion for what's happened to you in the past, maybe, then we're going to have much healthier bodies, much healthier minds. And as Sid Banks said, we are all one thought away from good mental health. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I love questions, so I'm so looking forward to your questions. You can either put them in the chat, you can PM me if you like, you can find me on Facebook. Please post your questions in the comments below when I post this recording. And again, I want to thank Pamela and everybody in the group for supporting this webinar, and I wish you good health.